Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be doing my July reading wrap-up. So in case you missed it, the first part of July I was wrapping up Mermaid Marathon. It went until July 11th, and I read so many mermaid and piratey themed books that I did an entirely separate reading wrap-up just for that readathon. I will link it up in the cards for you guys so you can go and check it out. So the first 10 days of July, I'm not counting any of those books that I read because I already did a wrap-up for them, but they will be in the pictures that I'll show you at the end of this video. So for now, we're only going to be talking about the things that I read after Mermaid Marathon and listened to. And I still read quite a few things. I did slow down because I kind of push it during the readathons, but I still got some good stuff in. I did continue to read a couple mermaid and siren piratey themed books, so they will be in here. But I didn't read them during the readathon, so I didn't include them in that video. Hope that makes sense. The first thing I finished after Mermaid Marathon was The Vicious Steep by Zoraida Cordova. I actually started this during the readathon, but I didn't finish it until like a week after. So this is a mermaid book that I have been wanting to get to for a very long time as part of a trilogy. I've had it for forever. This might be the oldest mermaid book that I own that I've had like the longest, if that makes sense, on my TBR. So I'm glad that I finally got to it. It was very different than I expected. This is Zoraida's first book, I believe, first series. It is very, very, very YA, very like young, fun, quirky, think like Percy Jackson-esque. So in this book, we're following our main character, Tristan, and he is a lifeguard. And one day there happens to be like this massive wave that comes in. He sees someone that he thinks is like in trouble out at sea, so he goes to kind of try and save them. He gets swept away into sea, and then he comes back 3 days later with like no memory of what happened. And he's got like scratch marks on his chest. His parents are all heavily concerned. And then a bunch of things happen. He has visions of like a vicious mermaid. And it's great. So there is so much that happens in here. There's like an underwater competition. There are mermaids, there are sirens, there are elves, there are all kinds of different creatures. There's even vampires in the end. There's romance and friendship. There is a lot going on. It's just a wild, fun adventure. It's very, very young, but if you know that going in, I think that you will still really enjoy it. You're following a young man, which is different than our young adult books that follow women. So there's a little bit more boy humor and things in here than what we're used to, which I didn't love, but I didn't mind either. It's just overall just like a really fun, wild ride. I will continue the trilogy. I think I gave this one 3 or 3.5 stars, so it wasn't like a new favorite, but it was still very, very fun. And if you love mermaid books and don't mind a younger feel, I would check it out. So then I read Edgeland by Jake Halpern. This is part of a duology, that the first book being Nightfall. This is Jake Halpern and Peter Gajowinski. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I read the first book, Nightfall, I think last year or the year before, which I really enjoyed. It was set on an island. It has a certain amount of days that are all in the daylight, and then night comes for like 17 years or something, and then all the people on the island have to try and leave the island before that happens because weird things happen when it turns to night, so they have to switch. It was a whole thing. This is set in the same world, but on a different island that is mentioned in the first book. You do not have to read them together. I kind of considered it a series, so it was one of the series I wanted to finish. This was crazy and way different than I expected. I think I actually like this one better than Nightfall. It does take a while to get into it because there's a lot happening, and I was expecting a little bit more callbacks to the first book, but really it's kind of more of a standalone. So this one's about a gaping hole in the ocean that's 30 miles wide, and they call it the Drain. And we're following one of our characters is Alec, and he works in the bone houses where the dead are blessed and then sent like on canoes to go down to the drain, which they consider the afterlife. Then when Alec's friend is framed and in trouble, he winds up having to break some rules and kind of figure things out. So I don't want to say too much more, but there's a lot to do with like kind of cultish type behavior as far as like the island life and things that they've been taught and things that they thought were how they are, and then they find out that maybe things aren't how they seem. There's a lot to do with like this afterlife and like what happens after you die, and I actually really liked it. I found it extremely interesting. It's very like religious and political, but in a fantasy setting, so you're like discovering this new world. I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars or 3.75. It's very unique and very different, and if you're looking for something quick to kind of like cleanse your palate, definitely check it out. It's very good. This one is also young adult with just slightly younger vibe. Then I checked out Lore of Olympus from the library, which is a graphic novel that I've been hearing tons about. This is like a modern retelling of gods and goddesses from Greek mythology that I've just been hearing amazing things. Plus sides to this. Loved the art style. It was really beautiful and like unique, and it was very quick. Downside, I didn't really love it. It was like a 3-star for me. I just didn't really understand the point. It got darker in ways that I didn't love, and it got confusing at certain parts. I just didn't feel attached to the characters. Maybe that happens with more of the stories. This is based off a webtoon comic, so there's more coming out. I just didn't enjoy it, and I liked some other graphic novels a lot more. So I don't think I'll be continuing on, unfortunately, but I know a lot of people really love it, and if you like Greek mythology, it might be worth checking out. Then I went on a road trip. I brought 1,000 books with me to read over the course of 3 days, and I finished 2. One we're going to talk about right now. So the physical book I finished was 7 Tears to the Sea by Tara Farley. I believe my vlog for this should be out or should be up very soon about our road trip and the books we finished. I'll link that up in the cards for you guys. We had a great time. So this is a tiny little Selkie novella that I've been meaning to get to for years. It's one of my friend's favorite reads. She reads it every year, and I really enjoyed it. So this is set again on I believe on an island or like a beachside town. We've got our main character, and at the age of 12 encountered a mysterious man at this place where her grandmother lives, and people don't really know what happened. She has this story, but it's kind of vague. And she winds up having to go where this encounter happened and live with her grandma and help her with her bed and breakfast. And you're getting all of those islandy, cozy vibes that you kind of want from a beachside read. You've got Selkie lore in here, the mysterious romance. There is a bully in here that I really didn't like, but it kind of works itself out in the end. Overall, super atmospheric, island, just a cozy beach read. And I really enjoyed it. If you like Selkie and islands and beaches and all that kind of stuff, definitely check this one out. It's super, super quick, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, now for the audiobooks that I finished for July. Again, after Mermaid Marathon. Okay, so I finished Beyond the Shadowed Earth by Joanna Ruth Meyer. Again, this is another duology that is set in a different world, or set in the same world following different characters. The first book was Beneath the Haunting Sea. I read that one twice, actually. I really enjoyed it. I really like Joanna Ruth Meyer's writing style. It's very hard to explain her books because they're so whimsical and detailed, and they have a lot to do with lore and mythology and different things. So this is the second book, and basically it's following a character that we left behind on the first book. In the first book, we have our main character, and she is set to be the empress of this huge piece of land, and basically a friend betrays her and she gets banished. Well, we're following that friend that betrayed her in this and kind of figuring out why. And so there's romance in here, and there's a lot to do with uncovering magic and whether certain religious and mythical things are true. I'm doing a bad job describing it. It's very lyrical and whimsical. I did really enjoy it. You can get a little bit lost in the whimsy because they're so whimsical, but I still really liked it. I think I gave this one, again, 3.5, maybe 4 stars. I liked it more than I thought I was going to, just because we were following a different character, and I'll definitely check out more from Joanna Ruth Meyer. And the narrator right here was incredible. She's one of my favorites. Then I read Shipped by Angie Hockman, narrator right here. Try to squeeze in a couple adult and young adult contemporaries in every year. They're usually not my favorite. When I like them, I completely love them, like To All the Boys I Loved Before and Fangirl, but overall I find them just kind of okay. I usually just need more. I need more. I need mermaids, I need dragons, I need something else going on. So this is an adult contemporary romance. Nothing spicy in this one, so keep that in mind. This is 2 characters that work for a cruise ship, and they're both kind of vying for the same job, and they wind up having to work together on this cruise ship to basically kind of compete for the job that they're wanting, and they actually have to take the cruise and be with all of the people and come up with a plan for, I don't know, the head of something. And of course it's a hate to love a little bit, and they kind of fall in love. This was fine. I wanted more from it. I loved the cruise ship vibes, and they're on excursions and things, which is what I was wanting from a book like this. I wanted a little bit more from it. I didn't love our main character. I didn't really like the romance that much. He was okay. It just didn't suck me in the way that a really good contemporary romance does. So it was about a 3-star read for me. The narrator was okay. She, again, wasn't my favorite, but wasn't bad. Oh, not the best luck with my first contemporary romance of the year, but I'm glad glad I tried it. Then I checked out Real Mermaids Don't Wear Toe Rings. I actually listened to part of this during Mermaid Marathon, but I didn't finish it. This is a middle grade series about a girl that turns into a mermaid. It's a very short book. I've been wanting to get to it for a while. I think it's a full trilogy. It's extremely middle grade and it's extremely old school middle grade. So the first part of this book is very angsty. She's like getting her period and different things like that. She's very immature, which of course is a middle grade to be expected, but it's just got an old school vibe about it. The first part I just didn't love because it was just too much about like getting acne and things like that. Again, I'm not the target audience, but I love a good middle grade. And then we start to get into like her turning into a mermaid and learning about like her mom and different things, and actually wound up really liking it at the end. The narrator right here was not my favorite. She was a little bit of a struggle for me, but overall I still found it really fun. If you love mermaid books like I do, I would check it out. The ending of this was really cool. I think the next books in the series are going to be even better, but it is very, very young and angsty, so keep that in mind. I think it was a 3-star read. Again though, 3 stars, not bad for me. It's just kind of like, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it kind of line. Bad for me is lower, which you'll see in a second. Then I read, continuing on with the Mermaid Fest, I was buddy reading with my friend Bella, Breakwater by Erin Stevens. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to be too harsh. I read the first one for Mermaid Marathon. You can see my wrap up and my vlog about it. I'll link them both in the cards. And it was definitely like a 3.5 star. It was enjoyable because I love mermaids so much, but it was definitely strange. This is an indie book, an indie author. I try to check out a couple every year for Mermaid Marathon because there's so many mermaid books that are indie. And this one's kind of a new adult vibe. It definitely doesn't have much spice in it, but there is like a little bit of spicy stuff. This second book I was excited to read because the ending of the first one was kind of wild and crazy and really fun to buddy read. This second book was so bad for me personally. I never like to be too harsh about indie authors, especially because they're trying to kind of make their way, but this book was so strange and me and Bella really struggled to get through it. First up, the narrator, not the best, so that's kind of a struggle to begin with. There are so many themes in here about like motherhood and family, which is fine, but it seemed more like a contemporary than it did a fantasy with just some fantastical elements in there. And there was a lot to do with like almost like shaming women for wanting to work and whatever. And I'm a traditionalist, like my mom stayed home with me. I was actually homeschooled. I like that kind of lifestyle. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to work either. But this one felt like it had a very heavy kind of agenda about it on one side. I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but women were kind of like feeling bad about working when they had kids and things, and it was very strange. All of the males in this book are sirens, and so they're like heavily attracted to them, and when they bond, there's like this whole bonding ritual. They basically like have to have sex for several days and like get the bonding ritual done. And there's a scene in this one that was horrendous to me. Like it was so bad, like not okay, and it was written like it was okay, and I just feel like a lot of people are really gonna struggle with this. So I wound up giving this one 1 star because I really struggled, and I would not have finished this if I wasn't buddy reading it with my friend. Normally that's why I never have 1-star reads, just because I don't finish them if I'm disliking them that much. The beginning was okay and I didn't mind the first one, but there were several scenes in here that I was just like, no. I feel bad, but I do always want to be honest in as kind of way as possible, and I'm fairly easy to please. Like I don't go into books like to judge them or like let's see if I like them. So when things kind of pop out, then I'm like I want to share it. Okay, so then I reread Forest of Hands and Teeth by Carrie Ryan. Again, narrator right here. Narrator, not the best. It was doable, but I highly recommend physically reading this one. I reread this because I want to finish the trilogy. As some of you may know, I'm on a big series finishing goal for the year, and so it had been a couple years since I read this, so I reread it via audio, which I had never done before. I like this series. So this is set in like almost like a village type vibe about it. We're like in the future, an apocalypse happens where there's a virus and basically zombies happen, and people have like boarded themselves in this village, and there's the zombies and they kind of come out and people get thrown to the zombies if they get infected, and it's got this whole like village vibe about it. old school vibe, old school kind of religious vibe as well. While it is about zombies, it is not a fast-paced, action-oriented book. It's very like thought-provoking and kind of slow, but I still kind of like it because it's got those like village fall type vibes. Apparently I like zombie books, I didn't know. This one's not like overly gory or anything like that. We've got our main character, she's grown up in this village, she doesn't know if there's anything outside the gates where she lives, and then her mother gets infected and it kind of sets her curiosity off. She's got a boy that she's in love with that she's not supposed to be in love with, and it's got like a whole thing going on. I still really enjoyed it, but keep it and just go into it knowing that it is a much slower paced book and not like a ton happens overall, but I still really like it. It's about a 3.5, 3.75 star read, and I just got the audio for the second one, so I'll be reading that in August. And I'm really excited about it, and I wanted to share this with you guys because my Overdrive and Hoopla only had the first book on audio, but I knew that they had the second book as an audio because I saw that it was on Audible. I didn't want to waste like a free trial or whatever on Audible, and Scribd I don't think has it. So I really didn't want to physically read the rest of these because I have so many books that I need to physically read coming up. So what I did was I Googled the second book audio to see if I could find it like to buy for cheaper, and it listed everywhere that had it, like Audible and Google Play and all of that stuff, and the prices of everything, which was cool. But then if you scroll down to the bottom, it listed where I could borrow it nearby, and it said that one of my nearby libraries that was like 40 minutes away has the digital audiobook on their Overdrive, and I could get a e-digital card through this library for free because I'm a resident in California. So a lot of times you can get digital library cards through other counties, and I have several library cards because I do this. So check, especially in larger areas, like if you're in a small area, check to see if you can get library cards from other counties and bigger counties especially that get more audiobooks in through Overdrive and Libby and Hoopla, and you can get them free because I almost never purchase audiobooks. So I went and I signed up for a free library card online, and I typed it into my Overdrive and I added it to my library account, and I got the audiobook. So I just thought that was so cool that it showed me the nearby libraries that had the option to borrowing it, and I didn't have to like go click on them all. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, so the next audiobook I listened to was Vampirates by Justin Somper. I started this again during Mermaid Marathon with Jeff, my husband, and we just finished it while we were doing our road trip. Unfortunately, I was very let down by this one. This is a story following two, I think they're twins, and they wind up getting orphaned. They are trying to avoid being like in an orphanage, and they set out to sea in a ship, and then their ship crashes, they get separated in the water, and they get picked up by two different pirate ships. One is a vampire pirate ship and one is a regular pirate ship. And the concept's amazing. Unfortunately, that is where like all of the action is. Not much happens in the story overall. You're kind of just waiting for something to happen the whole time. This is a middle grade series, so I was expecting it to be a lot more fast paced. I feel like middle graders' attention spans would be a lot lower than mine would be, so I was just very bummed out. Like even at the end, the two pirate ships kind of meet up and you're expecting like a battle or something, and the twins are reunited, and it just kind of like ends in hugs, and it's just kind of like, wah. So unfortunately I won't be reading any more in the series. I only gave this one 2 stars, like 2.5. The other books in the series are a lot longer, and it just didn't do what I was really wanting it to do. So that was a really big bummer because I've been wanting to read this one for a while. The narrator was incredible though, and if the narrator hadn't have been good, this would have been a DNF for sure because it was so slow. Then the last book that I read is Dark Skies by Daniel L. Jensen. Narrators are right here. I really loved the female narrator for this book. I did not like the male narrator. He was very dull, and the contrast between how good the female one was and how bad the male narrator was a little bit rough, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. So this is the second book in the Dark Shores trilogy. I read the first one during Mermaid Marathon, and the first one is very piratey and nautical, and then the second one is not so much, so that's just something to keep in mind. The second one is following a different character from the first book and then a new character, and they are the main characters of this one, and you're following the events that happened kind of in the first book from different perspectives for the first, like, I want to say like third of the book. It's a lot, which at first I was like, I don't really understand why we're getting the story over again from just a new person's perspective. But then it all kind of like clicks together and makes sense. This is kind of a high fantasy. It's very detailed politically and magic wise. So I feel like I can't binge read too many fantasies in a row. I get the worlds kind of mixed up. So this was a good one because I hadn't read it in a while though. The writing is incredible. This is definitely the most well-written book that I have read in a while, of both Dark Shores and Dark Skies. This one's a longer audio. It's 17 hours, so it's a little bit intimidating, but it does go pretty fast. There's some sweet romance in here and friendship and just a lot to do with like politics and romance and magic, and I'm doing a bad job describing it, but I don't want to give away anything from the first book. So really enjoyed this one and gave it 4 stars. Okay, so here are all the things I physically read for July. I didn't talk about some of them because they were in the Mermaid Marathon wrap-up. And then here are all of the audiobooks that I listened to for July. Because of Mermaid Marathon, I had a very, very good readathon overall, and I read a lot of things, so it was quite a large amount. And then here is where my unfinished series stand. So as I've said in previous videos, I started out with 47 unfinished series, but there were a couple series I decided not to finish overall, so that starting number has changed now. And that's just going to be how it is. So if I read like the next book in a series and I decide that I'm not going to finish it, then I'm just going to take it off the list. So I'm doing pretty good so far. I'm doing really good for August with this. My goal was to cut it in half, so that would be to get to like 23, including not adding any new ones. So any series that I start this year will be added to this list at the end of the year. So doing good. I'm fairly focused. I could be doing better, but I'm doing good overall. So let me know how your month of July reading went, how August is going. I'm so excited to start reading some fall themed reads. I can't wait. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side.